you born?
In New York City, Manhattan, the ghetto.
The ghetto.
And so I'm half Jamaican, half Black American, and the part that's half Black American is actually part Black American and part American Indian. So there's, on my father's side, American Indian, Seminole Indian, and then Black American with our ancestry. We think from Benin, from the way we traced it, so very close to Nigeria.
Wow.
And then on my mother's side, we're Jamaican, which is actually a nationality more than an ethnicity. So ethnically, we're Portuguese and Syrian on my mother's side.
Okay.
And then Black American from Benin and Seminole Indian on my father's side. But on my mother's side, we have a very rich sort of culinary culture in Jamaica. So I eat Jamaican food.
I for one, I'm one person that can't go a day without listening to music. Is that how it's like with you? Do you listen to music all the time? And if you do, who is your favorite musician? And what kind of music would you like listening to?
I embrace silence. So this might be a generational issue.
I agree.
So I don't feel the need to have music all the time, but I have music on when I'm driving, I'd say most of the time.
Okay.
And even in this office, if you come in, you might hear me turning my music off sometimes. So I have it on in the background when I'm working. It's really never loud, so I'm not a loud music person, regardless of the genre. The kinds of music that I like, I'd say female jazz vocals would be my number one choice.
Okay.
Then come male jazz vocals, then comes classic folk music.
What was your first job like? How was your experience?
So my first full-time job was 1976. I know that's dating me. And I had just started with what we call the State Department, the Foreign Ministry in the US. So I was an entry-level person, as low as you can possibly be in the professional scale. And the job I had was called Bicentennial Coordinator. And that was the 200th anniversary year of the founding of the United States. So there were many, many big official events that were being sponsored by the Foreign Ministry. The problem for them was that there wasn't anybody who was interested in heading that office because it was a job that was going to disappear after 1 year at the end of 1976. So they stuck that job on the new guy, and that was me. So it turned out to be a real job with a silver lining in that I was very prominent, very visible, and I was the gatekeeper, if you will, for a lot of events where important people had to come through me to get their tickets or get their approvals, whether it was foreign journalists, whether it was people who were attending the tall ships, which was the flotilla of all of the ships of the world that came to New York City Harbor. There were all of the parades, all of the big events on the Washington, D.C. Mall with the fireworks. To get any ticket to anything, you had to come through me.
So why Africa? You could be anywhere else in the world. Why have you chosen Africa as your focus?
I have been anywhere else in the world. I've been in many other parts of the world in addition to Africa. So Africa, I've spent more years in Africa than anywhere else. But I've also lived in almost every part of the world except the former Soviet Union and really not much in South America, but in a lot of other places. And
wow.
In Africa, I've lived in 9 different countries and worked in probably 25 to 30 total. So I've
wow.
gotten a good understanding from firsthand knowledge and long-term living and working throughout the various regions of the continent. And why? It's because there are more things that still need to be done in Africa than in other parts of the world. So if I'm somebody who likes to get things done and likes to feel as if my presence is adding value, I don't want to be where there are 20 other people who could also be there doing what I'm doing.
All these countries that you get to visit or work in, is there a particular sport that whenever you're in any country you would certainly play that sport?
I play squash at a pretty high level. So
okay.
Today it's squash. It wasn't always. I mean, I've been a runner and a soccer player earlier in my career, even a wrestler when I was still in school. So the sports that I have focused on have evolved, maybe with weight and age. But I'm still a runner, so I can't be so far removed from my past, I guess.
Wow.
So I'm still running, and that and squash are what I do now.
Okay. That's impressive.
Anyone watching this who would like to challenge me in a squash match, you will lose.
Wow.
One time, this is January 1st, 1980, I was working on my doctoral dissertation. I was in Rhodesia the day it became Zimbabwe. And on the Rhodesian side of the border, they had good communications. Everybody knew that there was now a new nation and that the border, which was a dam across Lake Karibu, where the Zambezi River narrows, was now open between what were the frontline states of Zambia and Mozambique and Zimbabwe. But on the Zambian side of the border, which was then a very underdeveloped country and didn't have very good communications to its hinterland, nobody had been told that the border was open. So I was the very first person to cross the border from free Zimbabwe into Zambia, because before that it was considered a white nation bordered by a black nation. There was apartheid, no one was allowed to cross the border, it was barbed wire, it was a closed border. I was the very first person to cross the border and was promptly arrested on the Zambian side of the border. I was in the US Army. So US Army Special Forces, what if you're a civilian you would call the Green Berets. So I was commander in Green Berets. And so it's already sort of the elite unit of the military to be in that kind of an outfit. And as a result, you get some of the high-profile missions, high-value targets, and the work of Special Forces compared to Army Rangers, which you've also heard about, is that we're much more involved in collaboration with allies to achieve some military objective.
Now, I'm going to get a little bit personal, but...
Okay.
I'm about to get a little bit personal. First of all, I'd like to ask, are you married?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to know, how did you meet your wife?
She was the front office manager of a lodge, a tourist lodge, in the high mountains of Rwanda. Rwanda is situated, the northern border of Rwanda is made up of a series of volcanoes. And in that volcanic range called the Virunga Mountains live the last surviving stand of high altitude gorillas, the high mountain gorillas. So one of the things that Rwanda is known for is the gorilla tourism. People come and trek and get very close, and they can even walk with the gorillas and get really close. They're not hostile. They're not likely to menace someone. So that's become an important industry. So her lodge is really situated right in the heart of gorilla trekking land. So I went to do a gorilla. I didn't actually go to look at gorillas. I don't care about gorillas, but I wanted to climb one of those volcanoes. So I went for mountaineering and was staying at her lodge, and that's how we met.
Oh my God, this is a foundation.